I'm not going really good in school. I get really frustrated.
My basketball team, they said, oh, you talk like a white boy.
They told us that our son is a hard-to-manage guy. They don't know him.
There's a cultural disconnect between independent schools and African-American boys, and the question is why?
I hate school. It's bad. It's hard.
The problem is focusing in class.
After you leave Dalton, where do you go?
I really don't want to leave.
I don't think it was, frankly, a good match for him.
I'd be better off if I was white. Isn't that true?
This is unacceptable.
Sit up!
His laziness.
Something is wrong with my child.
Wow. That's pretty powerful, isn't it? Maybe you have felt the same way. What we just saw goes along with what we've been talking about all this afternoon, the struggles so many of our children face. But we as their parents face struggles too. We want to give our kids the chance to succeed, but sadly race and class can sometimes get in the way. Well, that's the focus of the new documentary called American Promise, and we're honored to welcome one of the filmmakers behind the documentary with us this afternoon, Michelle Stevenson on Delmarva Life, to tell us more about this project. Michelle, thank you so much. So give me a little background on how this came about.
Well, you know, back in 1999, when we started this film project, we were entering this, new territory for us. This very prestigious college preparatory school that was providing our son with an academically rigorous and challenging curriculum for him that we felt would lead to greater opportunity. Mm-hmm. But interestingly enough, and more importantly for us even, it was offering a mission to diversify its student body, and our son was part of that mission in that initiative. So we decided to turn the camera on as filmmakers as well as parents to really document this diversity in action. But little did we know that, diversity is not enough. We are definitely not in a post-racial society, right, and that there are specific, biases that we all internalize that affect the performance and sense of well-being that our sons feel. Okay. And that these impacts are very specific as well, whether it's around their academic performance and what the expectations are about them, whether they're considered, threatening mm-hmm. to certain educators, and how do we as parents grapple with that so that we can keep them whole along the process.
Okay, so you spent 13 years on this documentary focusing on families raising African American boys. What were some of the struggles that you saw?
Well, some of the struggles were, again, these assumptions that these educators had about our children, and that our children were actually having to navigate various assumptions, whether it was sometimes in the African American community, in our neighborhood where our son was being accused of speaking white, or having to deal with those kinds of assumptions, and then coming into the classroom and having assumptions about his ability to read. But I do want to say that there is a hopeful note here, and the film really is full of pain, but a lot of joy and laughter as well as we chronicle these experiences. Yeah. And it's that the real message is about we need to talk about this. Right. We need to talk about this with our children so that they can air their feelings and get to the next level so that they don't take some of this personally and that they can able to grow from it. We need to engage the educators in the biases that we all kind of internalize so that they can be more aware of it in the dynamics in the classroom.
So Michelle, what you're saying then is you still think some of these struggles exist today?
Absolutely, they exist today, but there are things that we can do about it. And part of that is really talking about it, but also acknowledging that it exists, right, acknowledging that they exist without pointing fingers, because mm-hmm. these are unconscious. We can't help ourselves. The larger culture, sends these messages through us, through the media, or through the institutional practices that exist, whether it's, in the inequity of our educational system or right, the criminal justice system. So we need to be aware of those and how they trickle down to our individual interactions. But we can do something about it. And I think the film provides a platform for conversation.
Michelle, what are you hoping that people will take away from this film?
I think that the film is an opportunity for all our audiences to see our boys for who they are and understand that they are complicated beings and that we can combat the stereotypes as a community and that we all have a stake at bettering our biases and how we can address them. Mm-hmm. And not only does the film provide that kind of platform and safe places where we can have these conversations, but the film has led us to write a book called Promises Kept that takes it a step further and really provides practical guidance and solutions and steps for those involved in the educational system and for parents to be armed with and empowered with in order to be able to better advocate for our children.
Okay, so Michelle, 13 years invested in this documentary. Looking back at what you've seen, what would you have done differently?
Oh my gosh, that's kind of a catch-22 question. There's so many things I would have done differently, you know?
Yeah.
But I feel that what's important and what I try to teach my sons, and I think what's important for us to leave with our children, is that we are resilient beings and that we can't necessarily shield our children from all of the adversities that they face. It's really about what we do with that adversity. How do we experience it, engage with it, and grow from it? It's about this growth mindset that we need to really instill for ourselves, because we as parents, we're not born with a guidebook.
Right.
We're learning along the way, but it's about being able to change along the way as we move forward.
Michelle
and
Stevenson.
the same with our internalized biases. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle, for spending time with us this afternoon. Absolutely fascinating. Now, if you'd like to read more about American Promise, including how you can see the documentary in its entirety, all you have to do is go to delmarvalife.com and click on the show tab. And staying with our kids, none of us want them to pick up the habit of smoking, but wait till you hear how many of our kids are actually trying it for the first time. More and more kids turning to flavored cigars. We're going to learn more about that dangerous habit. Let's put on your thinking cap. Where on Delmarva is Brian? Let's get our first clue.
Well, Jimmy, here is your first clue. Clue number 1. This town traces its origins all the way back to 1795. One more clue to go and then the big reveal. Stay with us.